So I had a phone call the other day from a friend of mine. He asked me if I had any insight or any thoughts on where the price of gold was going. And he asked me if I thought gold was a good investment. And truthfully, I'm not very good at predicting things. So I kind of dodged the question a little bit. And I'm not maybe the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'm pretty good at observing things. And maybe I should just tell you a little story about a friend of mine named Haz. So Haz is an airline pilot. We've flown together, and that's how we know each other through the flying community. But Haz was originally from Iran. He grew up in Iran. He migrated here under political asylum when he was 16 with his family. But during his growing up in Iran, he had this goal. He had this dream that when he was 16 years old, he was going to buy himself a car. And that's all he wanted, was a car when he was 16. And Haz saved relentlessly. From the time he was a small boy, he worked odd jobs. He did whatever he could to save money, save from gifts from family. And when he was 15 years old, he finally had enough to buy a car so that when he was 16 years old and could drive in Iran, he would have a car. But something happened in Iran. They had a massive amount of inflation to their currency, what's called a hyperinflation. And as we were flying along one night, I remember him telling me the story very vividly of how his entire savings from the time he was a small boy until the time he was 15 was essentially vaporized. And he told me that all of that savings when he was 15 that once would buy him a car could now only buy him a single meal at the local restaurant, essentially a cheeseburger and french fries. His entire effort, his entire savings was completely wiped out by this hyperinflation that happened in Iran. Now, Haz has since moved on from that experience, and he's an airline pilot now, very successful in the United States. But his story was a very searing moment in his existence, and it is a story that resonated with me because he's truthfully the only person I've ever talked to who's been through a hyperinflation. So several times a year, we go to these gold shows put on by the GPAA, Gold Prospectors Association of America. They're a lot of fun. We get to meet a lot of people. We sell a little gold, whatever. But I always bring this banknote, and this is $100 trillion from the Bank of Zimbabwe. And if you're not familiar, Zimbabwe went through a hyperinflation from 2007 to 2009. And by the end of that hyperinflation, they were flying in a 747 full of these banknotes. Essentially, they're worth nothing. But I put it in the corner of the case along with gold nuggets, and it's always a great talking point. And people are very interested because it's this very pretty gold shiny note, and people think it has a lot of value. And truthfully, you can go on eBay and buy these for, I don't know, $15 or $20. I know I didn't pay more than that for this, but it's just a little momentum and a great talking piece about the hyperinflation that happened in Zimbabwe between 2007 and 2009. And it's not really worth anything. It's not worth anything. So the last example I'll bring up, and it's kind of a famous photo. If you just type in Weimar hyperinflation into the internet, this photo will come up. But it's of a woman who is stuffing a massive amount of currency, money, into a furnace. And it's not a political statement. It's not anything like that. She's basically putting this money in a furnace because the BTUs, the energy, the heat that can be extracted from burning the paper is worth more than the paper itself. The money is absolutely worthless. The currency, I should say, this currency is absolutely worthless. This is a very famous photo of this German woman. It's in 1923, and it kind of represents the highlight of the Weimar hyperinflation when they were sweeping money out of the gutters. It's just the money was absolutely worthless. So these are three examples I bring up for a very specific reason, because like I said, I'm pretty good at observing things, less about predicting things. But in these observations, I ask myself one question, and that is, what would it have been like for all of these people if they had just held their money in gold? What would it have been like? They would have lost nothing. Absolutely nothing. They would have preserved their wealth. They would have preserved everything if they had just held their money in gold. So I look at gold as being kind of magical in a lot of ways. And a lot of people say, well, it's boring. It's just a lump of metal. It just sits there. It doesn't spin off dividends. It doesn't do a lot of things that other things in the market do. But what it does do very well is it stores value. And that's how I look at gold. It is a store of value. It never expires. It's never anybody's counterparty risk. When you own the physical and you hold it in your hand, it is going to store its value regardless of what all the currencies in the world are doing. Gold will always keep up. Now, it's never like a linear path, right? It moves up and down and it does things that markets do. But in whole, you can just see over thousands of years, gold will hold its value. Gold is a wonderful store of value. And that's how I look at gold. And that's what I think when I think of my friend Hedge, and I think of the woman in Weimar, Germany, and I think of the people in Venezuela that are dealing with a hyperinflation over the last few years, and I think of the people in Zimbabwe. I think about gold, and if they had just held their wealth in gold, they would have lost nothing. So I did some quick back of the napkin, so to speak, math. And it's kind of a gee whiz geek out thing for me, but I wanted to know the number. So the estimate today of the total gold production is 208,000 tons of gold. 208,000 tons of gold that have ever been mined. Now that's through the Aztecs all the way to modern mining up to, I think the last number recorded was 2022. 208,000 tons. It seems like a massive amount of gold. And if you brought all that gold together and melted it into a cube, it would measure like 68 feet by 68 feet. And it would be small enough that you could fit it underneath the Eiffel Tower. And most of that gold was found in the last 70 years. It's only through modern mining techniques, pretty much dynamite and hydraulics and cyanide refining, that has allowed us to extract and find the majority of this gold. But if you divide that number, 208,000 tons of gold, by 8 billion, which is the population estimate for 2023, you come up with somewhere around 22, remember, back of the napkin math, about 22 to 23 grams per person. So if you want to know if you have more or less gold than the average person, 22 or 23 grams of gold is that number. So if you have more than 22 or 23 grams, you're doing better than the average person, the average human being right now in 2023. Okay, so full disclosure, I am a gold dealer. I have two websites, goldnuggetsforsale.com and goldnuggetsales.com, and we sell, surprise, surprise, gold. So there is a bias there. These are my opinions. This channel, the Gold Vlog, is my sort of creative outlet for these gold websites, but I just like informing, talking, showing off interesting gold, showing off interesting people in the gold industry, and that's what all of this is about. Today I got asked this question: is gold a good investment? What do I think about gold for an investment, for a store of value, etc., etc.? We talked about it, and those are my opinions. Is there a bias? Absolutely. Absolutely there is a bias, but I am a gold guy. So take it at that. Appreciate you watching. Be well, be safe on your way out. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. That always helps me out. We're trying to grow this channel, and consider subscribing to the channel. That helps me out as well. Have any questions, send me an email. I'll put it in a link below. Appreciate you. Be well, be safe. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Look how many zeros are behind the one there. $100 trillion. Come on. It wouldn't even buy a loaf of bread. I don't think this even bought a loaf of bread during their hyperinflation. Isn't that crazy? It's just crazy. Oh, and what is always off camera? Oh, it's this beautiful Bichon Poodle rescue dog that we found a few years ago, Bentley dog, and he is like my shadow, glued to me, and that's why he's just always hanging off camera.